Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tank12. How want to call me, I don't really care, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Now, the last couple of weeks, I didn't really play a lot of World of Tanks, so when I decided to, take some time and play some World of Tanks again, I kind of ran into the problem that I was really shit. I was maybe too aggressive. I didn't really read the map as well as I did before, and that's just the thing, World of Tanks is like riding a bicycle. You never really forget how to do it, but if you don't do it, like after a little bit, you might just have a little bit of starting, problems. It doesn't really, the analogy doesn't really fit that well because I think even if you haven't ridden a bicycle in a very long time, you're still quite competent on the bicycle. Let's say maybe you're not as fast, you're not as up to speed as you used to be on the bicycle. But either way, well, to conquer that feeling of not being as skilled as you were previously, maybe, there's always like go-to things where you know that you're really good. Maybe you drive a certain specific bike where you know exactly how to ride that bike. In World of Tanks, it's basically a certain specific tank that you don't really think that you ever forget how to drive. Today is not that tank, but today it's about that kind of tier. Tier 9 is, in my opinion, the perfect tier for me to get my skill back into the game. Because tier 9 is exactly the tier where you are actually able to control the games if you need to, if you're top tier, and you have a very big impact on it. But if you're the lower tier, the bottom tier against tier 10 vehicles, there's still enough firepower in that tier to make you a, dangerous adversary at least. So those are the things that I think make tier 9 the ideal tier for me. If you're playing tier 8, for example, tier 6, tier 7, there's always the problem that there might be an up tier to 2 tiers above you, right? So if you're playing tier 7, you might go up against tier 9 vehicles. Or if you're going up against, if you're playing tier 8, you might go up against tier 10s. And tier 8 is also like, it's such a tier that is clustered with so many tanks that even like a lot of tanks at tier 8 shouldn't be at tier 8. Some of them, especially the premium ones, should be moved towards more like 8.5 or tier 9. So that's exactly where I like to play my games. But the thing is, it's kind of been difficult. I decided to, I want to get a live action gameplay commentary thing going. So I decided which tank do I want to play at tier 9, and then I first went into the AE phase 1, and then I played the WZ111, and I kind of stopped recording because the battles were boring. Obviously, if you pick and choose from the replays, you can show off games that were quite cool, that were maybe unique in their sense, but if you're just playing, it's like streaming, so like not every game is going to be amazing. There are certain games where you do mess up, and I noticed that like I have relied much more on my teammates in those 2 games that I played where I was expecting support from my team, but there was no support coming. And I really noticed that World of Tanks has become a game that has become extremely selfish. People have stopped coming to help somebody. Like, I've pushed a certain position. I had 3 tanks behind me. They all let me drive out to that one position, an aggressive spot where I was able to do quite a lot of damage. But that spot was reliant on support from behind me. But the tanks didn't want to go and risk their lives, by getting shot at certain specific positions, even though they had bushes and they had like a wall. But they decided to sit back like 2 bushes behind that, and they weren't able to shoot me, or shoot towards me. So I was bomb rushed by 3 enemy tanks, which were in a platoon. So I noticed that the team play aspect in World Tanks is kind of not there anymore. Everyone is going on their own. And to be able to, to deal with that, there are certain things that you need to be able to do, right? You need to have the right tank. If you are on your own, well, you are going to need the right tools. Now, it's not like I'm looking to play by myself, but I have to be prepared. So I decided to, you know what, I'm going to be picking out the AMX 31 prototype. We're going to jump into a game with this thing. Hopefully, if things go sour, we can still provide enough support and damage output from our own, you know, our own accord. But if we need support, I'm not really sure. This tank is not the best all-rounder. This tank was taken out of the tech tree because Wargaming are no longer able to rebalance tanks. And if they cannot rebalance the tank, they will just take out the tank, and the tank will be, you know, put into a category where only the players that have previously owned the tank are still able to buy it, and the other ones have no access to it, the new players. So that is kind of a very lazy attempt from Wargaming to deal with balancing issues, to, you know, just say fuck it. We're not going to touch this thing because balancing doesn't make any sense. Would have to change quite a few parameters to make this tank kind of acceptable. So it's going to be quite awkward. But, you know, being top tier, this is exactly what I'm talking about. If you're playing tier 9, you're going to end up in one of these matches eventually, going up against tier 9s and tier 8s. This is a ideal matchup. Like, if you go up against some tier 7s, that would be even better. But being able to go up against these tier 8s and tier 9s is like one of the ideal scenarios, in my opinion. Like, the one thing, I just really don't like this trend. I've started playing War Thunder, and I've also noticed in War Thunder, as in World of Tanks, it's not like any of the community is kind of better in that sense, but I've noticed that both communities, World of Tanks and War Thunder, a lot of the players are quite selfish. In War Thunder, at least, with the planes in ground realistic battles, there's always that one added benefit of having a maybe close air support, being able to support you in a situation where you might need some support, but it's not like it's a guarantee that that person is going to help you out. But in World of Tanks, I've noticed that people are not willing to go out of their way to help you if they're afraid of getting shot. Doesn't matter what kind of tier. I've noticed that a lot of players are not ready, they're not willing to take hits for some random stranger, and it's quite interesting to see. I haven't run XVM, I haven't run anything of that. It could be new players, it could be old players that are really bitter, it could be players that are selfish, it could be players that just don't really notice it. You know, it doesn't always have to be on purpose, doesn't have to be like malicious kind of intent. But I've noticed that like the ways that certain things have happened where people like maybe have waited for somebody to turn the corner before them, where I have driven in first before everybody else in a push where you usually need like several tanks to be successful. That hasn't really that has been a bit of a bait where they are trying to lure you into taking some shots so that they don't have to take some. And it doesn't matter if it's a good player or a bad player. I've seen all kinds of players do it. And I have to be honest, I probably did it myself as well, but I actively try to do it as, you know, in a small amount of, you know, in a reasonable amount as possible, because I do not want to be the guy that is constantly baiting in teammates into positions where they get shot and I can reap the benefits, because I see my teammates as potential you know, opposition for my damage. But those are just some of the things that I've noticed, and we're going to be playing the north real fast because it looks like the south has everything in control. They have a standard B and a yak tire over there, but we do have... Oh, there's a Panzer IV. I'm completely blind. Looked like a rock. But we have a Scharfouture on top of the hill, at least one, and somebody just spotted me. It must be... I'm not really sure from where, but somebody did spot me, so I'll have to be careful. Now the AMX 30, I think it still is a pretty cool tank. I like the gameplay style that it provides. I like that it doesn't have the most armor, but I really enjoy the gun. I enjoy the feeling that this is kind of a modern tank, you know? This is a tank that feels like it is supposed to be a very first introduction into main battle tanks. And what I've noticed right there is that batch at 12th was just pre-firing this position, so they obviously know I'm here. I'm just going to be taking out this batch at 12th because he's going to be quite a nuisance right there. And my crew isn't at 100%, so that's something I need to take into account as well. I don't have like a lot of perks on this crew. This crew is rather basic in its skill level, but I think I can work with that. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm definitely looking forward to streaming again because I've had quite a bit of fun playing the game and being able to, you know, change ideas or exchange ideas and talk about certain topics. But, you know, I think it's also quite nice to have like live action kind of things, especially when you're in a matchup like this where you really have all the options available. And on a map like Shrziansky, where I know the places in and out and I know where to go, I know where to push, that's something that I think really benefits tanks that are really reliant on speed. That's one of the things that also doesn't really happen a lot on the Leopard Prototype A. I always compared the AMX-30 to the Leopard Prototype A and the AMX-30B to the Leopard 1, because, I mean, they're quite similar in their playstyle. Both of them have quite a high rate of fire, decent amount of gun depression, decent amount of pen. Both of them have basically no armor, but what the AMX-30B has and the 30, they both have a little bit of turret armor, which especially on the... Okay. Talking about armor, this tank has no armor and we just got nailed by artillery, we got nailed by Scorpion G, we got nailed by a TheFrXion, we got nailed by the Scharffutur, and we just lost basically all of our HP within a second right there. That was a bit unfortunate for us, and I hope our team is able to win this game. What I've noticed recently is that I have lost faith a lot more in my teams than I have ever had previously. Like, I have never had so little faith in my teams as I have in the year 2021. And I don't really know why. I don't want to be sounding like a stuck-up kind of douchebag, but I've noticed that, especially with the team play elements, that players actually do not really care about, you know, they don't really care about team play. And what has happened is that for their own selfish benefit, they start doing the damage, but they're not doing the damage for the team, they're doing the damage for themselves. And you might think, well, there's not a big difference, right? Because obviously the damage is for yourself and you have to do the damage. But if you're doing the damage for yourself and not to, you know, not for the team, the issue is that people will start staying back. People will start pulling themselves out of harm's way to give themselves a bit of an edge. And that's just something that's my I don't even know what I should call it, but it's kind of my wish that we go back to unselfish plays. I do see team play and unselfish plays every once in a while, but the thing is, you're much more successful in World Tanks if you play with your team, if you communicate, if you do take a hit that is meant for an ally that doesn't have a lot of HP. And if you do play like that and you are sacrificing yourself for the other guy, and the other guy is willing to sacrifice some of his HP for you, I mean, obviously you have to take into account, maybe HP, maybe the tier, but obviously if I'm in a tier 7 vehicle and there are tier 9 vehicles on my team, I will have to try. It is kind of my obligation as a tier 7 to try and keep the Waffenträger of Panzer IV alive. If I have to drive in front of him to take a shot that will definitely kill him and definitely kill me, I would much rather take the shot and die than to have the Panzer IV, the Waffenträger Panzer IV, die for me because he's a tier 9, I'm a tier 7. It doesn't really matter what kind of a vehicle I am. Obviously, it will matter in what kind of, the scenario and everything around it will be quite important. I'd say like the factors around it, because if you're like a fast medium tank and you need to flank and the Waffenträger of Panzer IV is just hiding there and he gets taken out, obviously sometimes the context will change and it will vary, but the thought is really important, that you're willing to take a hit for the team in costing you your own personal gains. If we are at this place and we are ready to sacrifice ourselves to a common good, which is winning the game, then I think we have reached the peak of world tanks. This Waffenträger of Panzer IV is just committing suicide right there, because he's pushing as TheFrXion and the Scorpion G, but he did manage to spot the Scorpion G, so he did win us a very important advantage right there. We have the IS-3 locked down over there. It seems to me, no, he's not AFK, but we have him locked down. There's an ML1, there's a T-49, and there's artillery all on him. He doesn't stand a chance, and now it's a 5-on-2 situation, which we should not lose in even the worst scenario. We shouldn't lose this one. But I mean, that's exactly what this team in the end did manage to go up. Everyone did play their part. I think nobody was really that scared of pushing. But the question right now is they have to be really careful to not go in one by one, because if they are not careful, they might lose this to the Stritzwagen, because the Stritzwagen in siege mode is going to be able to do quite a bit of damage, and if they decide to just suicide into him, they might lose this one. But I don't think that's going to happen, because the Stritzwagen just got hit for 1,000 damage by the T-49. You love to see that. You love to see it, but you hate to be on the receiving end of that. But yeah, in the end, the team did rappel itself in. I thought I was a bit scared by pushing by myself over here and engaging this guy. I got nuked in the end by several tanks, but the team did step up. They didn't let my sacrifice go in vain. That was not really a sacrifice, that was just some kind of dumb way of trying to push a tank, me being greedy, me not really taking into account that there are tanks behind it. But that's exactly the thing, right? If you're ready to make some plays for the team, if you're ready to push a flank and you're pushing as the first tank, sometimes you need to take the lead. But if you take the lead, the ones that are behind, please do not let his sacrifice be in vain. I have absolutely, like, the worst feeling in World of Tanks is when somebody is driving forward into a position, attacking the guys, and he is doing it with like numerical advantage. He's behind a building with 5 tanks, and they have to rush 2 or 3 tanks that are low HP. One of them is low HP, 2 of them full HP, and he decides to charge. He tells him in the chat, attack, and only one guy follows him, and the other 3 are just sitting behind the building because, oh my god, I do not want to get hit, I want to play it safe. That's the most frustrating thing you can feel in World Tanks, because the numerical superiority, the advantage, everything, it just shifts in a second because the people are hesitant. Now obviously there's a time and place when to push. But in some of these scenarios, it's really laughable that when you're on your own and you actually have to support, you push in there and nobody's coming with you. I've had so many situations like that. And they just, like, in the end, you just have to feel like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't want to play this game anymore. Next time, I'm going to be the selfish guy sitting in the back just sniping. That's exactly the thing that I do not want to have in this game over and over again. Obviously, it happens more often than not, but like the few games where you actually have to team play and everything works out because the people are watching after each other. That's exactly where this game gets into this beautiful stage where it's absolutely like stunning and it's the most fun. But either way, this has been a long video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, have a good one.